We'll call our meeting to order, and please let us know if the sound system is working correctly. We're not quite used to using this all the time. We're going to be able to hear. Jeanette, if you please proceed with roll call.
Okay, George?
Here.
Alan?
Here.
Helen? Here. John?
Here.
Bob?
Here.
Jack?
Here.
Pat?
Here.
And verify notice of meeting, please.
Notice the meeting was published and agendas were posted.
Item 3 is to formally adopt our agenda for this evening's meeting, so I'm going to take a motion to that effect.
Also moved to adopt the agenda as before.
I'll second it.
Helen has moved, Pat has seconded the motion to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting, our special meeting of April 25th. Is there any comments or discussion on the motion? If not, roll call, please. Jeanette? I'll call roll, I guess, on that. Helen? On that motion? Alan? Yes. George?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Jack? Yes. And John?
Yes.
I remind everybody that the Open Meeting Act is posted on our West Wall. There are public copies of the Open Meetings Act, which is on the chair up here in front of, if anybody would like a copy of the Open Meetings Act. And I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening and thank all the applicants. We all realize the importance, but we do appreciate the fact that people who step forward for consideration. And our agenda this evening will proceed first with, I guess everybody probably is aware, I'll make that comment, that the hospital has hired a CEO, and I believe the starting date is June 15th. And I think we have with us this evening, and I'll introduce Mr. Luke at this time. Bill, if you'd like to come forward. Bill Luke is our interim hospital administrator. He's going to give a little presentation on the responsibilities of hospital board members and has a handout that everybody could take a copy. And then I'll let Mr. Luke, if he has any further comments on the new CEO and his position, I'll let him do that at that time. These handouts back here, if anybody else comes in and snag one. Well, thank you for the opportunity to make the presentation both to the Board of Supervisors and to the applicants. I appreciate that. The Board of Trustees is very important to the hospital in many ways, and you'll see that as we go through this discussion tonight. And of course, if the whole board is important, then each member is also important as well. So as the hospital, the health system thinks about a couple of new board members joining the Board of Trustees, we're glad to have this opportunity to talk about these important things. For the applicants, what I'm trying to do is to give you some information that will hopefully inform you. Maybe you're already aware of this information, but help you get some sense as to what it would be like or what it means to be a member of the Board of Trustees for the health system. And for the Board of Supervisors, this information might help you select wisely. Hopefully it will be helpful to you. I'll go ahead and move through it. I won't have time to read every word that's in the handout here tonight, so we'll just get some highlights as we go through. My sources for this was a Heartland Health Alliance conference that was sponsored in Omaha back in March, and it was presented there by the Governance Institute and by Accord Limited. And so I have some materials from that presentation. Also went on to the internet and got some information from a particular website called Board Source, which any of you could also access as well. I'm going to go through two parts tonight. The first is some general considerations related to serving on a nonprofit board, and then the second part is more specifically related to healthcare as such. So the first part starts on page 3, so I'll start there. It's certainly an honor to be appointed to a not-for-profit board, and this material here in part one is for not-for-profit boards in general, so it would relate to not-for-profit hospitals. It could also relate to foundations or a Red Cross chapter. It could be a whole lot of different things that it could relate to. But it is more than just an honor to be appointed to a board or invited to join one. There are important legal and fiduciary responsibilities that require a commitment of time and skill and resources by each of the board members. You should want to ask some questions about the organization that you're being invited to join or have an opportunity to be appointed to in this case. Or you might ask questions about the organization's programs, about its financial status, about its clients or constituencies, whoever it serves. Turning to page 4. You might want to know something about the structure of the board. You might want to know what some of the individual board members' responsibilities are. And you might want to understand the board's relationship to the staff, especially the executive staff of the organization. So you can read those sub-points at your leisure. Moving on to page 5. Then after you know something about the organization, and most of you already do, at this point, in terms of thinking about applying for it, then you want to evaluate your interest in serving on the board. And at that point in time, you want to ask some questions like, am I committed to the mission of this organization? Can I contribute the time necessary to be an effective board member? We're not going to do a whole lot of fundraising here for the hospital, but some of the not-for-profits do. The last question there, can I place the organization's purposes and interests above my own professional and personal interests when making decisions as a board member? So those are some questions that you want to ask yourself to evaluate your interest in the board. And then it mentions some background materials there that you might want to look at as well. If you can access some of those and have the time and interest in looking at them. On page 6, it talks about what are some of the basic responsibilities of non-profit boards. So these are 10 basic responsibilities here for a non-profit board. First of all, they determine the mission and purpose of the organization. Now, obviously, the purpose of the health system is pretty well defined at this time, but what should the mission continue to be for Valley County and the surrounding areas? Secondly, the board selects the chief executive officer, which is one of the most important duties that it has, and one that has just been included, as Bob mentioned. So we're excited about Jack Williams joining us about the middle of June, and then I'll stay on for a couple of weeks until the end of June to just help with transition. Third, then, the board members need to support and evaluate the chief executive, give them direction, give them help as they navigate the various things that they have to deal with. Number 4 is to ensure effective planning. The overall planning process is very important. Number 5, monitor and strengthen programs and services. Number 6, ensure adequate financial resources. Number 7, protect the assets and provide proper financial oversight. Number 8, build a competent board, and that's primarily the board of supervisors' role in this case to maintain that. Number 9, ensure legal and ethical integrity. And lastly, this list of 10 would be to enhance the organization's public standing. Make sure that they can clearly articulate the organization's mission, accomplishments, and goals to the public and garner support from the community. On page 7, we have some legal responsibilities of nonprofit boards. It's pretty well established in the legal circles now as to principles of nonprofit corporation law, and even though the health system is not a separate corporation, it's a division of the county, these things still are generally deemed to apply. So a board member must meet certain standards of conduct and attention in carrying out his or her responsibilities to the organization. And these standards are usually described as the duty of care, the duty of loyalty, and the duty of obedience. So under duty of care there's some description of that. It describes the level of competence that is expected of a board member. and typically expressed as care that an ordinarily prudent person would exercise in like position and under similar circumstances. So you need to exercise reasonable care that when you make a decision as a steward of an organization that you're taking light of this duty of care obligation. Then there's a duty of loyalty, and that's a standard of faithfulness. A board member must give undivided allegiance when making decisions. The board member can never use information obtained as a board member for personal gain, but must always act in the best interest of the organization. And there's a lot of case law about times where that did not happen, and the problems that arose because of that. And then the third one, duty of obedience. The duty of obedience requires board members to be faithful to the organization's mission. They're not permitted to act in a way that is inconsistent with the central goals of the organization, and try to build public trust. So those are the legal responsibilities. Some of them key actually are nonprofit boards. And then lastly, in this section, part one, what are the responsibilities of individual board members? And the responsibilities will be to attend all board and community meetings, functions, etc. Be informed about the organization's mission, the services, the policies, and programs. Just highlight a few things. Serve on committees, inform others about the organization, keep up to date on developments in the organization's field, follow conflict of interest and confidentiality policies, refrain from making special requests of staff, and then assist the board in carrying out its fiduciary responsibilities. Some personal characteristics to consider would be the ability to listen, to analyze, to think clearly and creatively, to work well with people individually and in a group, be willing to prepare for and attend board meetings and committee meetings, ask questions, take responsibility and follow through on a given assignment, open doors in the community for the organization, and to evaluate oneself as to how you think you're doing. Develop certain skills if you do not already possess skills such as to list a few things there, mention some things. And then lastly, some things that a board member should possess would be honesty, sensitivity to and tolerance of differing views, a friendly, responsive, and patient approach, community building skills, personal integrity, a developed sense of values, concern for your nonprofit's development, and a sense of humor. So those are off of the Board Source website, and you can do like I did and go out there and find those things, and there's other information out there too. Now to come to part two, the considerations, these are more specific to healthcare, specifically nonprofit government. We've seen increasing pressure over the last 10, 20 years or so on nonprofit healthcare organizations and their boards. There's been increased public reporting of information of various types. Medicare has a lot of information available. Some states publish it. Some insurance companies and other organizations are making things available now publicly. Healthcare reform impact will bring additional pressure on health systems and their boards. There will be new things to consider, new things that have to be done and dealt with. Compliance oversight is becoming more and more strict. We see this in other areas of the economy and our society as well. The things that used to be just errors and mistakes, now they can be looked at as being a criminal activity, something that has a higher penalty associated with it. And we're seeing that in healthcare as well. So there's some other things on there that I won't take the time to read as well. Those are the first messages are coming from. Looking at page 10, you say, well, who is putting the nonprofit healthcare board under the microscope? And there's a list of a dozen or so different places where this pressure is coming from. I'll just let you read through those. Down at the bottom of page 10, a new reality has arrived. The old reality was that not-for-profit organizations just enjoyed a public presumption of doing good works for unselfish motives. But the new reality now is that not-for-profits must demonstrate transparently that they deserve the public trust through providing good community benefit, through prudent stewardship and through ethical conduct. Moving on to page 11, the board core responsibilities are to, first of all, define and uphold the mission of the organization. In the case of healthcare, then, it would be to ensure clinical quality, a high level of service, and of course, patient safety. Advocate for those served and advocate for the health system, to perpetuate effective governance, to set strategic direction, to ensure competent management, and to protect the fundamental health of the organization. And in light of these responsibilities and these pressures, sometimes the question comes up, well, will the board be held liable if they make a particular decision? But generally, they won't be held liable if the decision was made in good faith, where the trustees are disinterested. It doesn't mean they fall asleep during the board meeting. It just means that they don't have a conflict of interest there, that they're reasonably informed, they ask good questions, they got all the information that should be available to them. And the decision is in the best interest of the organization. And if we follow this information, we're probably going to do it. On page 12, just a point that governance matters. If we have better governance, we'll have better performance of the organization, and that will provide better health care to the people that come to the facility for care. Speaking about the board duty of oversight, there's a few things there in check marks, but three important notes that were made during the conference there. First one, boards only have authority in meeting as a board. No individual or subset has the authority of the board, unless it's been a committee that's been delegated some particular authority. Boards must speak with one voice. All members support the final decision of the board, and then the board's primary contact by the employee is the CEO. On page 13, you see some principles for great governance. So the board and the members should have unassailable integrity, a good mission and strategy focus, assurance of quality and safety of patient care that's provided, ensure that there's financial oversight, there's adequate transparency and accountability, and that all sums up into effective governance. Now, individual trustees could be expected to have the following expectations of them: to follow the code of conduct, including conflict of interest and confidentiality, to act independently to further the mission and promote the health system as opposed to any personal or private interest, participate in orientation and education periodically, prepare for and attend meetings, engage in the activities of the board, question what's happening, contribute, understand and respect the distinction between the role of governance and the role of management. It's not the role of the board to manage the facility. That's what the CEO and management is hired to do. And it's the role of the board to provide governance, to set policy and strategic direction. Learn the critical measures of mission, success, and know what red flags to look for. And support the CEO and the fellow trustees in their work. And then to advocate for the health system and the community. And with regard to page 14, the healthcare board competencies. These are not things that any one board member would be expected to be an expert in all of these things, but the board is going to have to deal with all of these things eventually over time. So it helps in establishing a board to attract people with different backgrounds, different experiences, different expertise, so that it broadens out the board and gives it more ability to deal with these various things. Health systems are complex organizations. They require a significant amount of strategic thinking and planning. Corporate board experience is very helpful. Any knowledge of the hospitals or the healthcare industry will also be helpful. Healthcare reimbursement is pretty unique in our economy, and so understanding something about that would be helpful. Improving the quality of healthcare services would be helpful, and research and education, physician relations, management performance, succession planning, change management, diversity awareness, community service, and community community relations. Information technology is a big thing with the Stimulus Act providing a significant number of dollars around the country. So there's a big push nationwide to develop information technology in hospitals and health systems, doctors' offices. We get into architecture and real estate, risk management, investment management, financial acumen, compliance, and audit. So these are a number of the competencies that the board has to deal with one way or another. And then lastly, on page 15, looking at a healthy board culture there. If the board has a healthy culture, the board members will have a passionate commitment to the mission. They won't have hidden agendas. They'll have open conversations. There will be some debate and dissent and that sort of thing. It can be candid, but it should be respectful. And that's how you flesh out the best ideas and the best way to go. There will be guidelines for interaction developed and adhered to by all board and committee members. There will be regular board meeting evaluations, and there will be an annual board self-assessment that will result in some goal setting, including individual member assessment. So in conclusion, hopefully this has helped the applicants a little bit in terms of what is being promoted around the country as things that we're looking for in Board of Trustees members, and what would be helpful to have there. Hopefully for the Board of Supervisors, this might be helpful in giving you some things to think about and some criteria to use. So with that, I thank you for this time, and I don't know if we have time for any questions or.
We do, if someone would have some. Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. I'll just make a couple brief comments and then we can kind of get underway. But I think everybody's probably aware, and it's been explained to us numerous times by our county attorney that the responsibility of the county board is to appoint the hospital board, and after that, it's the hospital board. In a smaller community, it's sometimes difficult to stick exactly to that because we get a lot of input, but legally, according to our county attorney, our responsibility is to appoint the hospital board, and we don't get involved in after that. I'd like to also invite everybody that's here, or encourage everybody that's in attendance tonight, that after our interview process, please feel free to contact any of us on your thoughts or your opinions. I feel like we're kind of somewhat in a rush over this because after tonight's meeting, we have it scheduled on our agenda tomorrow to make a decision on the 2 new members, and our meeting starts at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So if any of you do here have comments for your supervisors or as far as any of us, please feel free to do it, but we are somewhat restricted on time. We are just a little bit ahead of schedule, but I think all the applicants are here, and if it's all right, we'll just go ahead and proceed. And the way we have it set up is that we like every applicants and the applicants, the way they're scheduled, the way the applications came into us. And if you have anything that you'd like to add to your application that was submitted, we'd like to have you do that first. And then we have some possible interview questions that we might ask. So we'll just go from there. Once again, we're very appreciative of everybody being here. We're very appreciative of all the applicants we've had. And if it's all right, like I say, we're a little ahead of schedule, but Mr. Glenn Denning, I think, is number 1 on our list this evening. So we have a microphone and a table up here, and hopefully the microphone works. Please raise your hand, and anybody, if you don't, if you can't hear us, and we'll certainly try to do the best we can so we can. So Tim, I think everybody does have your application. If you'd like to add anything to that, please feel free.
I really don't have any additional information. I did have an opening statement, but we covered almost everything I was going to discuss. So
that's all right. It could be something.
I guess, like I say, he covered most of the things. There's 3 very important things that I believe are necessary to serve on the county board, on Valley County Health System Board of Trustees. First and foremost is a willingness and a genuine desire to serve your community rather than a special interest group. Secondly is the ability to discern facts. And thirdly is the ability to make intelligent decisions based on those facts. And I think I bring all three of those things to the table. That's why I submitted my application. As you all know, I used to be very active in the community, in public service. If there was a microphone, I was usually behind you for years and years and years. As we traveled with our ministry, I was forced to step away from that. Now that I've almost retired, I have the desire once again to become active in the community. I don't care to step up to the microphone. I'm not really interested in running for elected office, but this opportunity is something that I've been waiting for a long time. In fact, I've spoken to a number of people in the community that if an opportunity ever came over to serve a hospital board, I'd be very interested. That probably explains why my application is the first one on your desk. Beyond that, I only have one question, and that is the liability issues that Mr. Wood brought up. And I simply wondered if the county or the hospital, one of the other carries liability insurance on the board members in the event of an accident.
I think I'll refer that to Mr. Luke.
If the hospital has, we have a director's and officer's liability policy that we keep track of.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm waiting for your questions.
Okay. Does anybody on our board have a specific question for Mr. Lane?
Sure, I'll ask you a question. You're not going to get off that easy. Every public figure is subject to criticism. Have you ever experienced public criticism, and how would you feel you would handle it?
Yes, I indeed have experienced public criticism. I guess I learned a long time ago you can control the things that are a result of your doing, but you can't control things that are not of your doing. As to public criticism, should I be allowed to serve on the hospital board? That's someone else's problem, not mine. It's a very poor choice of words and a poor phrase to say I have nothing to lose, but I think you understand what I mean by that. I'm not a business owner in the community any longer. I'm retired, or essentially retired. There's really no way, other than hurting my feelings, that anyone can hurt me. Sure it hurts. Public criticism is a tough thing. It's a very small town. I know everybody, or almost used to anyway. Everybody knows me. It hurts. I'd like to think that we're a better Christian society than that, but my skin's pretty big.
If you was elected to the board, what would be your vision to see where the health care would be going?
Well, I think we all know how vital it is that the Valley County Health System stays functioning and active and on top of things in this community. We see what happens to other communities. Burwell comes to mind right off the bat. It's a city that has lost their hospitals over the years. It's tough. It'll hurt this community terribly. It's the largest employer in the community. I want nothing more than this hospital to succeed state of the art. We've got the facility to do it now. We need to maintain the integrity of the people that work there, the quality of people that work there, so that it can excel and provide not just our community, but the entire surrounding area with health care. It's a long way to the next hospital.
Anybody else have any questions? Tim?
We have 14 minutes here.
Well, do you feel
Under pressure, you can stand up for your own opinions, or
It's never been a problem so far. Absolutely. Absolutely.
yes, it was. Well, there was one candidate that I looked at the question pretty well about
can feel, so I don't have any more questions, but yeah, I don't